Okay, so here's an example of a cross-section of a clay hoof. This hoof was sculpted for a demonstration that I did for my online course, Complete Anatomy. Now you can go over to my website, deannamontero.com or sculptureequineanatomy.com to check out the course if you'd like to take it. I strongly recommend it. It's a great way to learn the anatomy. A lot of people are really benefiting from that course. So again, that's deannamontero.com or sculptureequineanatomy.com, and you look for a Complete Anatomy course. So what I have here is, this was a full foot at one point, and then what I did was I cut half of it away. So you can see we have half a hoof and then the armature exposed. Now this is what's known as resin, a poly resin. It's like a hard plastic kind of, and this gives us a really nice structure to build the hoof over. So it's like building over bone. Here we have 3 bones. They have the distal phalanx, which is commonly known as the coffin bone. We have the middle phalanx, commonly known as the short pastern bone, and then also the navicular bone, which is a floating bone that's down in here. Now, of course, it had to be attached because it's unrealistic to expect it to be floating in this case. Now, this extra hook, it would not be on an actual coffin bone. The coffin bone would kind of like end in right here, but I have that there for additional clay support. I found it easier for students, and also it reduced the use of clay, which was also very nice. So in terms of structure, what we're looking at here, so if you take a look, you can see all these different colored clays, right? Both in the front and the back, and also underneath. Now, these different colored clays represent different inner structures of the hoof. The white is a tendon. Now, that tendon is the extensor digital tendon. That runs all the way up, and tendons are an extension of muscle. So they extend off of muscle, they become very thin, and then add support for movement to the bone structure. So they're right up against the skeleton. And then we have this tendon back here, which is the deep digital flexor tendon. So same thing, it's an extension of muscle that runs all the way down the leg and into the navicular bone. So as you can see, those are vital to your horse's health. If those are not taken care of properly, like if they're not elastic and well cared for, your horse will tear this structure, which is extremely hard to recover from. So that I talk a lot about that in my blog post, how you can prevent those issues, and also just by knowing the anatomy, you can make proactive decisions when you're riding your horse to help your horse prevent injury and keep your horse as a riding partner for many more years than perhaps you would if you didn't have that knowledge. So now taking a look here at the back of the foot, we have the bulb of the heel, which is the digital cushion. Now, if you are familiar with the structures, you would know that there are many different structures here and throughout the foot. This whole structure here is represented in red. It simplified the sculpting process, and there really didn't really make a whole lot of sense to sculpt each and every layer, even though the students do learn about the layers. So this is the digital cushion. Now we do have the vasculature, which would be in here, and some other structures. However, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Now the tan color is the horse's external covering, so that would be like skin and hair and such. So that's what this is on the bulb of the heel. So that would be the exposed part of the horse's foot. And then below the coronary band, which is right where the two bones meet, there's a joint here, so that's where the coronary band is formed. Then it turns into the horn of the horse's foot. And that's where that hard horn, insensitive horn, grows from. It grows down from the coronary band. So a healthy coronary band is essential for a healthy foot. Now looking here at these layers in the front, you get a good look at that. The red layer represents the blood flow of the foot, and this is the coronary plexus, among other structures. Again, it's the same deal. Didn't get into sculpting every single structure. It's just not realistic when we're sculpting it, but you can definitely get a great sense of the structure of the horse's foot now when you're sculpting it. So now this would be the coronary plexus up in this area. This is where the hoof wall is produced, and it grows from. It goes straight down in hair-like fibers. They're very straight, and those become very strong in the horn, making the horn an insensitive structure, which is why we can trim it and attach shoes using nails. So that does not damage or hurt the horse in any way because it is an insensitive structure. There's no nerve endings in this outer layer of the foot. Now in the inner layers, we have the sensitive structures. So here, like I said, we have the blood flow. This is where the foot receives its much needed blood supply, oxygen, and moisture that it needs to be able to grow the rest of these structures. Now if that blood flow is interrupted, then you get a separation of the coffin bone from the hoof wall. Never want that. That's irreparable in the horse and causes permanent damage and lameness. So blood flow to the foot is extremely important, and oftentimes that can be cut off by poor diet, among other possibilities. If the horse has very, very poor conformation, or the foot is not properly cared for and the toe grows out and the foot has undue pressure on it, there's all sorts of ways that can happen, but usually it doesn't in the case of somebody who is proactive about their horse's feet and really understands the structures and how to care for it on a daily basis. So the sensitive structures is where we find the nerve endings as well. So in these, you see the yellow and the blue. So the these are the laminal dermis structures, and this is where we find the nerve endings. So anytime if a nail were to go up into these any of these parts, your horse would experience a tremendous amount of pain and become very lame. So that we definitely want to avoid that, or over trimming, which is why it's important to have a certified farrier, somebody who really understands the inner structure of the horse's foot and how to balance the outer wall to support the inner wall. Another part of the sensitive structure, it helps dissipate concussive force, and that is actually very important to understand because when we have proper balance to the outer wall, it gives proper support to the inner structure. And when the outer structure and the inner structure complement and support one another, the horse then has proper balance over his 4 feet to dissipate the concussion when his foot hits the ground. So that's another reason why balancing the outer wall is important. And balancing the outer wall is also important to consider the horse's conformation. Now, corrective trimming, there's lots of different definitions for corrective trimming, but you don't want to correct conformational faults. You want to work with the faults or with the undesirable conformation as best as possible, but not necessarily try to change it, because the conformation comes from the inner structure, the bone structure of the horse's foot. Now, you can give support to the horse greater support if, for instance, the horse is pigeon-toed or splay-footed, through muscular development, and help take off the pressure that the horse might have from those conformational faults. And the reason being is when the muscles of the upper muscles of the body are developed properly, the horse then has good posture, and it lifts that body weight off the legs, and it distributes the weight over the body more evenly. So you're able to avoid injury that way. So then if we look at the bottom part here, you just see the outer portion of the frog. So this would be half of the frog. And again, all of the layers were sculpted in red, so you can't really see the different layers. And then the outer wall of the hoof. So this would be the sole. Oftentimes this part of the foot just flakes away, and it maintains that beautiful curvature. Now this should never touch the ground. If the sole touches the ground, then the horse can feel great sensitivity and become lame. You might get bruising, or is something like that. So the sole should, a good healthy sole should curve upward. So that's the structure of the horse's foot on the inside and the cross section. I hope you enjoyed that. Check out the blog post with some additional information.